Paulie here on the Latino Slant. Thanks for coming on by and checking out this very special video. If you're not yet subscribed, make sure you are. And if you are, go ahead and tell 100 of your closest family members about the Latino Slant and have them subscribe now. We got the founder and editor-in-chief and writer, one of the writers of Bounding into Comics, John F. Trent, to come on and talk to us. We're going to discuss BANE, Angel Miguel Soto, the director of Blue Beetle, the Blue Beetle hate. You know what? I love these real conversations, and this is our first time we're going to have them here on the channel. Sir, welcome to the Latino Slant. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I'm sure we'll have some differing opinions on some things, but looking forward to it.
Director Angel Miguel Soto, director of Blue Beetle, gentleman from Puerto Rico. And you've covered him the last couple of years, and he was just interviewed by the Playlist where they asked him about the BANE pitch. I guess that's how he got connected with Warner Brothers, or before the Blue Beetle, he pitched his idea, his vision of BANE. Really quickly, what's your take on the gentleman prior to this? Because I know you guys have covered him.
Yeah, so we've only really covered him leading up to this movie. I didn't really know anything about him until the trailer dropped, and they were like had the line of George Lopez's character calling Batman a fascist, and then people started like looking into like who the guy is that decided to include that in a DC movie. And you find out
in the trailer, right?
Yeah, in the trailer. Yeah, you have Uncle Rudy's character at the end. It's like a cut scene of the trailer, which I find annoying in the first place that they do these things and have a cut scene or like an end credit scene of the trailer. But anyways, the end credit scene of the trailer is George Lopez's Uncle Rudy saying Batman is a fascist unironically. And maybe you don't have as clear context, but I think it was very clear that was that character's pretty held belief that he thinks Batman is a fascist. And the fact that you're putting that in the trailer maybe indicates that, hey, maybe this is what the director or the creators behind it would do, like, because you're putting it in the trailer, right? And then people started looking up what was going on. People started complaining. You had the Geeks and Gamers guy, specifically Jeremy Griggs and Ryan Canal. I still don't know how to say his last name. I need to ask him. But
you know what? It's like Spanish. You just say it real fast. Just say it real fast. Ryan Canal.
Yeah. And so they were roasting it, and it came to his attention, and he started like mocking them with the Skeletor memes and stuff like that. He's like, "Ha! My job is done here. I got attention from the people that I don't like." It wasn't even us. Usually we're like right on top of that, but other people had already been doing it. Lofty Pixels basically went in, found that he had tweeted about Trump, that he wished he would his life would end the way Abraham Lincoln did, via assassination. Basically, I found a tweet where he was describing Puerto Rico as a slave colony, and it just seemed like more of the same from Hollywood, just absolutely extreme leftist politics. And the fact that you've got that Batman is the fascist line at the end of the trailer, the scene two and two, put those together, and it's like, okay, this guy's clearly taking whatever his extreme ideology is and is putting it on top of Blue Beetle and bringing that to the film. We also have like commentary from him confirming that there's an illegal immigration allegory in it. So that's pretty much like my opinion of him, is that he just seems to be an extreme ideologue, and he's putting that in the film.
Or I know a lot of Puerto Ricans that share that same sentiment, and then a lot that don't. It's their it's kind of like their duality, and yet they're American citizens.
That he took a BANE pitch to them. He had an idea for what he wanted to do with BANE. They were like, let's hold on that, and why don't you would you do Blue Beetle? And he was like, okay, and then he goes on and says how he took his vision for how he sees BANE, which is some kind of he sees it as American colonization or intervention, I guess, in Latin America. Right. And he said he took that and he applied it to CARAPAX, who's the main super villain character. Yeah, which he is a Blue Beetle like villain. Conrad CARAPAX is a comic book character.
Let's listen to a little bit. We can stop and go, and then I want to keep at. Want to ask you some questions. and then we'll take it from there. Okay.
Into this meeting pitching Bane, and then you walked out with Blue Beetle. So I'm just genuinely, from like a creative standpoint, what was it about like the origin of Bane, the story of Bane, that really like drew you to him and were like, I really want to tell this story?
Well, like as far as Bane goes, like the comics that are about Bane's story, it felt like he's very misunderstood. Much like CARAPAX in the movie, he is a product of his environment. And
okay, so far we're safe, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with him. I mean, if you read Vengeance of Bane #1, which is that Nightfall tie-in, he's clearly a product of his environment. He's just they retconned the origin, right? His dad is like, I think becomes like King Snake later on or something like that. But originally, you don't really know who his dad is. It sounds like he's caught up in this coup of the Republic of Santa Prisca. The coup failed. The government of Santa Prisca then basically sentences his mom and him, who's like, he's unborn. He's still like in the womb, to basically serve like a life sentence for his dad. And he's born in the prison. They go into like kind of protective custody. His mom wastes away for over 6 years, eventually dies when he's 6. And then the warden puts him into Gen Pop. He's then exposed to the worst of the worst. One of them seems to be a very sick individual that's interested in children. A fight breaks out. He gets thrown off of a ledge, basically, is knocked into a coma for a year, has visions of what he should become. And he wakes up after his coma and he kills the guy that was trying to take advantage of him as a child. And then he's thrown into solitary for a decade. He survives killing rats and fish that flood into his prison cell when the cell floods. And then he eventually comes out and he's basically king of the prison because he defied the warden and all their expectations by living.
And John, is this a kind of a made up Latin American island type of thing in the comic that Nolan created? Or is this like, it's kind of like, is it undefined or is it defined?
It is. So it's like a Kondak, right? It's a fictional, like DC is not like Marvel, right? They create fictional cities. You have Metropolis, you have Gotham, you have
Palmyra City.
Yeah, Palmyra City. Okay, yeah. So you like it's a fictional republic called Santa Prisca. I think by the name you would assume that it might be in Latin America around there, and it does seem to be like it's controlled by like a government junta and everything like that, which obviously
so there is that. Right,
there's some stereotypes and stuff like there. Yeah,
generic, propped up, Latino government. He seems on point as far as he knows what Bane is, in that he did his homework at the very least, and then he's gonna pitch his idea to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, the one thing I would disagree with, I don't think that Bane is viewed as like misunderstood or anything like that. I kind of disagree with that. I think Bane is very self-aware of who he is and how he became the way he is.
But are other people misunderstood of him?
Readers, I don't think. Meaning. Maybe possibly, but I don't know. I mean, maybe he does. Okay, I think. I don't know if like most people. Yeah.
I mean, like.
Yeah.
I think that's the least of our problems.
Yeah.
Right. That history has been buried. The history of the Caribbean, the Antilles, like it's a history that's brushed off in history books, right? So for me, it was very important to be seen. And with the character of Bane, the formation of this, villain, I think in his own right, he's also a hero in his story. So whatever happens at the end that might have gotten distorted because of what was done to him, I think that what he represents is a lot of the unknown or forgotten or brush under the rug history of interventionism in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Yeah, so I don't see that. We covered Graham Nolan's response that he doesn't see that either. He says, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Right. Yeah,
and he's projecting a lot of his own ideas onto the character.
Personal projection. That's the word that Mr. Nolan used. Okay. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think that, like, it doesn't make sense to me how Bane could be this kind of representation of American interventionism. There's no mention of, because he goes on later on in the interview and talks about Guatemala. There's no real discussion of Americans being involved in this coup of Santa Prisca. In fact, the coup fails. In Guatemala, the coup is seemingly successful. And then you have like all the civil wars and everything that happened afterwards in Guatemala. So I don't know. The Santa Prisca government basically wins. They put the coup down, and they're punishing they're like Bane is being punished for his dad being involved in the coup. So I don't really see that as far as like comparing it to like the Guatemala thing. So I don't know. I like, again, I think he's kind of reaching for
a little over all over. His vision, his ideas were a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously.
Go ahead.
So in that Vengeance of Bane origin story, I mean, he gets told about Gotham, and Bane literally works his way out of the prison, fakes his death, comes back, frees his comrades, takes the warden hostage, basically manipulates the government to get a helicopter, takes the helicopter and flies to mainland DC, where he eventually goes to Gotham, and his whole goal there is to basically defeat Batman. And prove himself to be the greatest person ever, for the most part. Yeah.
So you just laid out his backstory, his origin story from the comic book perspective, right?
Right.
For the most part. And now let me ask you this: if you're a director, up and coming director, and you got a call to go into Warner Brothers or whatever, and it's like, we want to hear a great pitch, want to hear great ideas. I mean, would you stick to what's there, or would you want to make it your own and to show that how unique your creative vision is? That to me is what this guy was doing with his pitch. That this had nothing to do with the comics. This is what you said. From what you told me right now, that has nothing to do with what he said. He's went off on his own, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna have Bane represent U.S. intervention in Latin America because this, because that. It's like, okay, all right, well,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he probably did. I mean, he does start the interviews talking about like the Bane stories that he watched or read, seemingly in the comics, maybe some of the animated series, Batman the animated series and stuff like that. That Bane was in, maybe even Dark Knight Rises, where you got Tom Hardy playing him. So he does kind of reference those in the beginning of his interview. But yeah, I think that's an issue that we have in Hollywood in general. I know Chuck Dixon, who created Bane, is a big critic of this as well. I'm obviously a huge critic of it as well. I think one of the reasons why you see a lot of problems with a lot of this stuff is that they do stray too far from the source material. I like to rag on Rings of Power. Those guys said that they were going to write the book that Tolkien never wrote. I think that's pretty much the philosophy of a lot of these people. And I think we had the Dungeons and Dragons guys saying that they use IPs to tell their own stories because otherwise they can't get them made. So I definitely see that. I mean, I think there's like tons of evidence of that, right? We see that all over the place.
To me, then it's just a matter of like, of taste, I'd rather that you stick to the source. I mean, make that a great film. Or screw that. I don't need my adaptations to be that connected to the source. If what you're pitching me is amazing, I'm gonna go for it or whatever. Yeah. That's a really interesting idea.
At the same time, though, you got to keep the character recognizable, right? Bane is a pretty prominent character. He's like, his origin isn't about American intervention, so like that's him putting that on the character.
But so Soto, he was denied it, obviously. He said, well, we have this blue beetle thing. And then he's like, well, I'm going to take some of those elements and put it in CARAPAX's character.
Correct.
And I think what Soto was saying was that this is going to make him a much more interesting villain than your cookie cutter villain.
I mean, I guess to me that just is like a massive turnoff because he's politicizing the character from the get-go. I think CARAPAX's origin is kind of interesting, but at the same time, we've already seen that I think play out in the movies. You have Ironmonger and Iron Man. Like this Blue Beetle film looks like a ripoff of the first. It looks literally like a remake of the first Iron Man, and just instead of having Tony Stark's of having Tony Stark's personality, you've got Spider-Man, Peter Parker in the suit. So,
but John, then what you're telling me is that like, well, here it kind of looks and feels like a Blue Beetle origin, but it's a ripoff. It's like, but that's a superhero trope. That's they're not straying there. So
Yeah, I'm just saying from what I see in the trailer, like
sure.
the CARAPAX character in the comics, he's actually goes to this island that was being run by Ted Kord's uncle, who was trying to build a bunch of robots to take over the world and like world domination and stuff. And CARAPAX actually like merges with one of the robots. So it's a little bit different, but yeah.
So he wants to put his own stamp on it. That's what the director wants to do, and a lot of guys are like that. They want to be visionaries.
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, it's well, let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, like for me, Namor did not work, but I gave Coogler a benefit of the doubt, and
Namore.
I was excited about Tenoch in this iteration, but to me, it was a big fail.
I mean, to me, it's just we've seen this story too many times. I don't know. I mean, sure, you can give it a chance if you want, but I tend to trust my instincts that this is what's going to happen.
Your gut is telling you pass on the Blue Beetle.
Oh, 100%. You've got like the Batman is a fascist line. You've got this guy saying there's an illegal immigration allegory. You've got him posting like the most insane things on Twitter. You've got him here talking about Bane is a representation of American interventionism in Latin America and saying that he took that concept and applied it to CARAPAX. Yeah, I mean, the guy's telling you what he did. So I why wouldn't I not believe him?
Okay, so for the general audience that knows nothing about comics, loves to go to the movies. From what I'm hearing, this is actually a really great family friendly film. Would the entertainment value kind of be a motivator for those families? Would it where then you can also get in your message, sort of like Sound of Freedom, which I thought was a highly entertaining drama with a strong message, and a lot of people reacted against that as well. So what's the difference there? I clearly don't agree with politically with the filmmakers of Sound of Freedom, their personal politics. But this film, I was all in, brother. Because I was open. I gave it a shot.
Are you talking about Sound of Freedom or Blue Beetle?
Sound of Freedom.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make the example that I don't. Whereas let's say you're 100% right about Soto, I'm not going to judge Soto because of his politics on his creative film.
Sure, I'm not either. I mean, he's telling you what he's doing though. Like that, I'm not just basing off his politics. What he's said in interviews that
but what I'm
he
saying
included
is
his politics into the film. That's what he said.
But I'm still gonna give it a shot, as I would any other film, regardless of people's politics.
Sure, yeah, that's your prerogative. I don't plan on going to see movies that are going to preach at me and tell me things that I know are like wrong.
Absolutely, and John, when it's there and it comes up, I talk about it. I'm the first to cop to something that maybe a Disney product that put in a Latino subplot, some characters, and they just failed miserably. I'm going to break it down and discuss. I'm going in some cases we'll rant about it.
Yeah,
because it's
probably happening a lot, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, especially from Disney the past year. Actually, when Disney is successful, it's not because of their own they didn't mean to, like with Flaming Hot or Encanto. They totally put those movies out to the waste, but the Latino community embraced those movies and those became hits, and they use stereotypes, they use tropes.
Coco is very stereotyped.
Coco as well. In particular with Flaming Hot, which used cholos and gang members, Chicanos, lowriders, to the benefit of the story. So what I'm hoping for is that this happens, because now I'd like to switch gears with you, John. And again, guys, we're here with John F. Trent, the editor-in-chief, founder of BANE in the Comics. Sir, thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.